Okay, so today's Daf Yomi is Bava Kamma Daf Tes is a Daf Yomi for Shabbos Kodesh. We're going to start on the bottom of Ches Amud Beis, approximately 8 lines to the bottom. So Amar Abaye, Ruvain Shemachar Sada Shimon Be'ach. The guarantee, he says to Shimon, if you pay me $1 million for the field, although somebody comes and says that it's really theirs, I'll give you back the $1 million. Chov de Ruvain, and so a creditor of Ruvain comes along, but Tarif me Shimon. He says to Shimon, listen, I've got a claim on that field because Ruvain owes me $1 million. So now I had a lien on that property. But Tarif me Shimon, and he comes along to take the money straight from Shimon. Comes along to seize it from Shimon. Dinahu, so the halacha is the Azal Ruvain umishtai Dina Bade. So the halacha is that Ruvain can say, wait, 1 second. Before you're coming along to take this field from Shimon, I want to take you to court and say you really don't have a claim. Well, Matzar Amarway, and this guy who's making this claim doesn't have the right to say, Lav Bal Dvarim Didi. I'll tell you, I'm just making a claim against Shimon. I'm not making a claim against you. He can't say that. The Amarway, because Ruvain could say to him, Imavkas Minei, if you're going to get the money from Shimon, if you're going to get the field from Shimon, Alai Hadar, but Shimon's going to come back at me. So therefore I can make the claim. So too, Vikadamri, Afilu Shaloba Achrayos. So too, even if he sells this, some say even if he sells without a guarantee, Nami, he can still do this. The Amrway, Lonichole, because Reuben could say, listen, I don't want to ruin my reputation. I don't want Shimon to be upset with me. So therefore I have the ability to say it. Let's say Reuven sells the field to Shimon without any guarantee whatsoever. Let's say Reuven sells the field to Shimon without a guarantee. So he just sells it to Shimon with no guarantee. V'yatsu a Asikin. And Asikin start making a claim. Who are Asikin? These are Orin. These are people who are making a claim, and they're trying to say, listen, it's our field. He has no right to it. So under those circumstances, under those circumstances, until Shimon has actually made a chazaka, done a proprietary act on the property, he can go back on it. But once Shimon has done a proprietary act, he can't renege on the deal. Why? My time. Amrway, he could say to him, Chayisa de Katre, because Reuben could say to Shimon, listen, I sold you a sack that's a closed sack filled with wind, but you decided you wanted to buy it. It's like I sold it to you as is. Savris Fakiblis, you accepted upon yourself. So the Gemara says, okay, well, what's the point where it becomes a chazaka that he can't? Hold on one second. So, hold on. So it's like this. Sorry. So basically, the point is, he says, at what point is it a chazaka? That once he starts walking along the borders, that's the point where he does a proprietary act on the borders, where he does some action to show that it's his. So basically, let's say he fixes the borders. And this is only the case where there's no guarantee. But let's say he gave a guarantee on the property, where we're going to say, well, if he gave a guarantee on the property, we don't say this law, but it will be the case if there is a guarantee, even if after the guarantee, if he takes a hold of the field, if a person makes a claim against the field, he can recant on it. He can go back on it. I feel he can say no, even if he makes a guarantee, he can't go back on the field. Why? Way, because the guy who sold it to him with a guarantee could say, show me that you have that this guy is seizing the property for you, and I'll give you back your money. But until then, sorry, you're stuck with the field. Rav Huna says, and what's Rav Huna talking about here? So Rashi has to tell us, Lo kasha cry de el. Kesef umetav. So he says, so he's going back. Rashi's telling us that Rav Huna is now coming to answer the question earlier. He says the pasuk earlier that it says Kesef umetav, that he says it's not a difficulty, it's not a problem. That's what Rav Huna is saying. That earlier we had a question that there seem to be two psukim that contradict each other with respect to the obligation of payment of the mazik. That one of the psukim says Meishav Sadeu, Meitayav Karmo Yishalem. One of the psukim says he has to pay from the best of his field and the best of his vineyard, and that implies that he has to pay from the best. But the other says Kasev Yashiv L'Ba'alaf, and that implies that he could give him anything that even brand. So we had seen earlier 4 answers to that question. Rav Huna comes along and is now addressing that question. He says that the Torah is telling us, "O Kesef, O Meitav Sadosev." That so and what's the reason that he's saying you could either pay him with money or the best of his field? And why was Rav Huna delayed until now? Because Rashi says because the Gemara wanted to bring up the question of Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Akiva, that how do they evaluate the property? And that's what they were dealing until now. Now we go back to the question we asked before. What about the two psukim that contradict each other? Do we say you pay with the best of your property or with anything, even with brand? So Rav Huna says, "Oh, kasef o meitav." You could pay either with brand, either with any money, or the best of your property. So Eisvei Rav Nachman Rav Huna. So Rav Nachman challenges Rav Huna because we learned it says in the Brisa, Yashiv, from the fact that it says Balbor, Yishalem Kesef Yashiv L'Ba'alav, that what do we do from the fact that it says Yashiv? It's a word that's not needed. So what does it mean? It could have just said Yishalem Kesef L'Ba'alav. So why does it say Yashiv? L'Rabo Shava Kesef Afilu Subin. That means to say that you can even pay with something like brand. And so therefore, this is a question on Rav Huna, who says that you have to pay either with money or with the best. So the Gemara says, Hachamayaskinon. No, what this pasuk is referring to, but the waystlay, that he has no money. And he has no real estate, and so therefore, under those circumstances, he could pay with brand. So the Gemara says, "Well, either way, it's like pshita. It's obvious that he could pay." And the Gemara says, "No, Ma'adatema. You might have said to him, Amrino Zil Tarl Zabin Vaisli Kes. You might have said to him, we force you to sell the brand and bring us actual money." So we say, no, that's not the case. Kamash one. Amravasi. So in this context, the Gemara says another halacha as it relates to money and real estate. Ravasi says, "Ksafim haren kekarka." He says, money is like real estate. With what respect do we say that? If you want to say that just like you can either pay from the best of your property or for money, then Ravasi is saying the same exact thing as Rav Huna, that you either pay with money or with the best of your real estate. And the Gemara could have just said, Ravasi. So why does it say it's a new teaching? So the laws with respect to the following, it's said with respect to the following, you have 2 brothers, Shecholko v'natal echad karka v'echad ksafim. So he says the laws with respect to 2 brothers that divided up their properties that they inherited from the father. One of them took real estate and one of them took money. Ubal balchov v'natal karka. And now the creditor comes along and he wants to take the real estate because the creditor has a right to claim the debts of his father from real estate, but not from movables or money. And for this respect, Ravasi says that money is like real estate, meaning to say the son that took the money, he's exactly the same law as the son who took the real estate. To Azo High, so the brother who lost the real estate now can go back to the brother who got the money. And he could take half of the money that he paid out in money. So Gemara says, Pshita, isn't this obvious? Hi, brava, hi, lavra. You think one is the son and the other one's not the son? Of course, it could collect the money. No, Ikudami might have said, Adarabo, Idokisa. He could have said just the opposite. That's why I took the money, because I didn't want this exposure. Because he says he could say this is the reason why he took the money. That if it was stolen, even if they'll steal it, I wasn't going to come and claim it from you. But and that's why you took the real estate. The mitarfa that even if they'll come and claim it from you, that you can't take anything from me. Meaning to say each one accepts upon himself the responsibility that he can lose it. The guy who's got the money can lose it by a theft, and the guy who's got the real estate can lose it by a creditor or somebody who has a claim against him. So I shouldn't have to pay you anything. So that's not the case. So rather, the Gemara says, what does it refer to? Two brothers who divided up their father's estate. And the creditor came and takes his portion. He takes the portion and he can take it from whichever one he wants. That meaning to say that the brother who didn't take the real estate, so meaning to say, two brothers divided up the real estate that their father left it to them, and the creditor could come and take it from one of them. And there, Ravasi said that the brother who didn't get his real estate taken away can go back and divide up with the other brother so that they both lose it equal. So Gemara says, but why does he have to say this? Didn't Ravasi already tell us this one time? Did Itmar, because we learned let's say two brothers divide up an estate. And one of the brothers, the creditor comes and takes one of their portions. Rav Amar Batla, Amar Vita. Rav says under those circumstances, the division was canceled, and they each divided up again and split the estate. Shmuel says Viter, no, the guy who lost the property lost it. He can't go back and make a claim. Rav Asi says no, the brother that he took his portion, notel Ravia Bekarka, Ravia B'mamos. He could take a quarter of the property that was lost in money, in real estate, and a quarter in money. So that's what he's able to do. So, meaning to say, Rashi says Ravia Bekarka, he could give him a quarter of it as a real estate or as money. As we learned in Yevamos, that this is what he's entitled. It means he only gets a quarter. And the Gemara is going to explain. Rav Amar Batal Machokas, that their division is canceled. Kasavar Acham Shachokol Kiyorshim Havu. Says the brothers who divided it up, they're considered to be heirs, and so therefore that we're going to say retroactively, we're going to say that each one was accepting the portion that he was getting as inheritance, and so therefore. The debt of the father. Shmuel Amar Viter, Kosavar Acham Shachal Kol Kuchos. It's like the brothers purchased it from the estate, and so therefore the Kol Kel. It's like therefore they have no guarantees. So if the guy comes and makes the claim, that's it. They're out of luck. Rav Asi says no to Ravia Bakarka, Ravia Bamos, that they either get, the guy gets either a quarter in real estate or a quarter in money. Misafkle, he's not sure. He's not sure if they're heirs or purchasers. Therefore, Hilkoch Notel Ravia Bekarka Ravia Bamos. Therefore, either gets a quarter because he's not sure. So therefore, there's half that's in question. And since there's half that's in question, we divide that and they each get half of it. And so therefore, we can't say Rav Asi is saying Kasafim Maram Kim Karko with respect to this law, because here Rav Asi says, we already said it, that like this idea about the machokas of Rav and Shmuel. Elamai, what does he mean when he says Hare and Kikarka? What does he mean when he says that money is like real estate? It means the Inyan Metav, that the mazik is able to pay him either with money and not just with the best of the real estate. Well, that's exactly what Rafuna says. So the Gemara says, yeah, say V'chein Rav Asi. Read it as that's what Rav Asi says. Amar Avizer Amar Rafuna b'mitzvah ad shlish. So he says that when it comes to a mitzvah, to fulfill a mitzvah, a person has to give enough money until a third of his assets, or until a third to fulfill the mitzvah. My shlish, what do we mean when it says up until 1/3? Ilema shlish beis. So if you mean, it means to say, or on top of Testament Beis, that he has to give 1/3 of all of his assets, if that's what it means to say. It means to say if he has 3 mitzvahs to do, basically he has to give all of his household to fulfill the 3 mitzvahs. A person doesn't have to lose all their money to fulfill a positive commandment. So Rabbi Zera, he do a mitzvah, ad shlish b'mitzvah. That it means that if you want to fulfill the beautification of the mitzvah, the enhancement of the mitzvah, you have to spend up to 1/3 more. So let's say, for example, you have the opportunity to do a mitzvah of purchasing a Sefer Torah. And there are 2 Sefer Torahs you could buy. One is not as nice and the second one is nicer. You have to add on up to 1/3 from the price of the first one to buy it. So by Rav Ashi, shlish milagav shlish milabar. How do we calculate this third? Do we say it's 1/3 from within the first third? For example, if the first one was 60 dinar, then you have to add on, if the first was 6 dinar, so you have to add on 2 more dinarim and get to 8. O shlish milabar, or if it's 3 from outside the initial price, meaning to say if it was 6 dinar, then you have to add another 3, so therefore it's 3 from the total price that you can include with, which will be 9 dinar. So take it. We leave this question unresolved. The Marava Amri Mishmei Rabbi Zera Ad Shlish Mishelo means to say that he has to pay Ad Shlish. What does it mean? Mishelo, from the money that he has set aside to sustain himself, and he shouldn't. Meaning to say, for the first, when it comes to the Hidur mitzvah, the first third he uses from the money that Hashem gave him to sustain him, and Hashem is not going to pay back to him that money. But from that point on, if he adds on more than a shlish to fulfill a mitzvah, Mishal Kadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem will pay the rest. That's what they say in Marav in the name of Rabbi Zera. Okay, so now we learned in the Mishnah, in the first Mishnah, we learned that there are Arba Avos Nezikin, and we learned their character traits of them. Now comes along our Mishnah and explains the characteristics of their obligation if they did damage when he didn't watch them. So Kol Shachavti Bishmira, so anything that a person is obligated to watch, and it didn't watch it properly, does damage, Yichsharti Es Nisko. I'm basically prepared its damage. We'll see what it means. Let's say I prepared only a little bit of the damage. Then I'm obligated to pay the damage as though I prepared all the damage. We'll see what this means in the Gemara. And the Gemara says, those aspects which there is that they're not hektish, meaning they don't have the law of misappropriation. Nechasim shahin shalbanei bris, those assets that belong to a regular Jew. Nechasim hamiyuchadim, those assets that have an owner. Ubekol makom, and in all these cases, chutz mirishus hamiyuchadas hamazik, unless the assets are in the property of the one who's doing the damage. Rishus hanizak farmazik, and something that's in the domain of that the nizak, the one who's damaged, and the mazik share. And when the azik does damage, or when his money does damage, the person does damage has to pay full damages from the best of his property. So let's see what the Gemara says here. So now our Mishnah is going to say, we learned in the Mishnah, Kol Shachafti Bishmira, so anything that is responsible to guard, I'm responsible for all of its damages. The Gemara is going to bring a brisa to explain what are we saying that it's considered to be that you're machshiras and nezek, that you're obligated to guard it. Tan Rabbanan Kol Shachafti Bishmira, so anything that I'm obligated to guard, Hichsharti es nisko, if I don't guard it properly, I prepared its damages, and so I have to pay. Ketzad, what are we talking about? Let's say shor ubor shemisaran l'cheira shotavikata. Let's say you have an ox or a pit that their owners gave over to a cheira shotavikata. There's somebody who's without agency. They ziko, and then he does the damages. The shor or the ox, the shor and the pit do damage. Chayav l'shalom, and then under those circumstances, he's obligated to pay. So let's say you have a pit or an ox that you give over to a chereshot to the cut, and he does a damage. He's going to be obligated to pay because he prepared their damage. But this is not the case with respect to fire. That if he gave fire to a chereshot to the cut, and this person without agency, and he does damage, the one who gave it over to him is exempt, even though he prepared its damage. The Gemara is going to explain, B'maya skinan, what are we talking about? When are we saying that with a shore and a boar, you'll be liable. For an ox and a pit, you'll be liable. Whereas with respect to fire, you'll be exempt. So b'maya skinan, what are we talking about? If we're saying that you gave these kids a tied up ox or an uncovered pit, and you're going to say you're liable, with the similar case by respect to fire, you gave the kid a coal. Why is the kid exempt? Why are you exempt if you gave the kid a hot coal, but you're liable if you gave him an ox? It must be you gave the kid an untied ox or an uncovered pit. However, you gave the kid a torch. So why would you be exempt if you gave the kid a fiery torch? When do we say that you're exempt if you give something to a minor? That's where you gave him a hot coal and he fanned it. Of all shalhevis, but if you gave him a flame, chaya for sure is liable. Because for sure it's going to be damage. The damage is ready to go. So therefore, the Gemara says, so we're talking about a case where you gave the kid a tied up ox and a covered pit, which you're going to be exempt. The kavasa gabe and we're talking about a case where you gave the kid gachalas, you gave him a coal. It's not a flame, it's just a hot coal. The commerce mashna hachal mashna. So why are you liable with respect to a kid who has a tied up ox, but you're exempt for the fire? Sure, darko and a 2K, because the ox, you could expect it to remove itself from the ox. Bor, darko and a turi. The pit also will become dislodged. But Bava Kamma de shavikla me'amya amya va'asla. As long as you, when you don't guard a coal, we can assume it's going to go out. And so therefore, you're not going to be liable if you give the kid a coal. Or Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar Fil Masar shall have us not a pot. Or according to Rabbi Yochanan, it says even if you give the kid a flame, you're exempt. The kavasa hacha. So when are you going to be liable? The shor mutar bor megua. That only if you gave him an ox that's untied. What's the difference between an untied ox and a flame? So he says hasam. In the case of the flame, you're going to be exempt because safta de cheresh kagarm. Because you're going to say that when the kid grabs a hold of the flame with the tongs, kagarm, that's what caused the damage. And so then he's exempt because the kid didn't do it. It's just that he brought it over, the hold on it, the tongs. But in this case, with the ox that was untied, it wasn't that the kid didn't do it. It was the ox was untied, and that did the damage, and that was his responsibility. Okay, we'll have to stop here, God willing. We'll pick this up on Shabbos. We'll study Rashi at 4:05, and then after Mincha at 4:00, and then after Mincha we'll do the daf at Shalosh Shabbos and Shabbos. A good Shabbos to everyone. God willing, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.